Colleagues, we're going to get started now. First of all, to Ms. Taylor-Roy and to the other gentleman, I apologize. Your name's kind of out of the screen. I think it's Mr. Parrell. We are having real technical issues with anyone who is outside of this committee room right now. So we're going to just hold and stand pat. I need to address my committee about how we want to proceed here because we're pretty much batting 1,000%. Anyone who is virtual, the sound is just not meeting the requisite requirements for our translation team here in the room. So, colleagues, with that said, I have Tom Rosser here from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. Our folks from PMRA and CFIA are all participating virtually, and at this stage of the game looks as though they would not be able to participate based on what I'm being told by my clerk and the technical team. We do have two witnesses that are here in person for the second panel that I know have traveled a great distance from Nova Scotia and Saskatchewan. I think it would be absolutely imperative that they are on the record given they are here in person, so we have to make sure that happens today. My inclination would be something like this, would be that we try to proceed with those who are able to be on the record here. We do have Mr. Guzman, I think it is. Mr. Guzman, who was going to be participating virtually. Based on what I know right now, colleagues, that's not going to happen tonight for whatever reason in this room. And I think we would be better off to go with a panel of about 90 minutes if I call up the two witnesses that are going to be expected who are already here for the second panel. We move ahead with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and we re-invite back the witnesses who are unable to make it from the government agency. And that's the best we can do tonight, colleagues. I think we do 3 rounds of questions. We would do about 90 minutes. We let lots of ample time for opening statements from our folks, and that's how we proceed. But I look for guidance from my committee members. Mr. Barlow.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most prudent approach to take. Unfortunately, I would hope we would address whatever it is with this room for a future meeting or whatever seems to be the issue. I don't know if we'll need the full 90 minutes, but I think, Chair, that's the best path forward is just deal with the ones in one panel who are here, and unfortunately those who are here on video will have to reschedule.
I see Mr. McGregor, and okay, we're good, colleagues. Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Berg, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we're going to expedite you here by about an hour. If you wouldn't mind coming up to the front of the room, maybe we'll have the clerk just address you. Colleagues, we'll take a few more minutes, and then we're just going to proceed. Unfortunately, to our folks who are online, I know you do have your technical headsets. Normally, we don't have issues, but for whatever reason, we do, and I have to take my direction from the folks in the translation booth about their health and safety. So we will reschedule you, and we'll either make sure that the room is better equipped, or we'll try to have you come in person, and we'll get this solved. Madam Clerk, I'll ask you to reach out to Mr. Guzman and perhaps mention that we are having technical difficulties. We're going to have to reschedule. But Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Berg, if you could come up to the front of the room and join Mr. Rosser, we'll get started in just a few minutes, colleagues. Thanks. We'll just suspend until that time. Okay, colleagues, we're going to get started. Welcome to meeting number 58 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food. As I mentioned on my previous remarks, we're having technical difficulties for those witnesses seeking to participate virtually, so we're going to move forward with a hybrid panel with the folks that were able to be here in the room, and that is Tom Rosser, who serves with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. Thank you, Tom, for being here today. No stranger to this committee. We also have Jake Berg, who serves as the chair of the Canadian Honey Council, and I believe resides in Saskatchewan. Am I correct in saying that? Welcome to the committee. Thank you for making the trip in. And from Oxford Frozen Foods Limited, we have John Hamilton, who serves in Nova Scotia. Great to have a fellow Blue Noser here before the committee. Thanks for making the trip to be here. Now, folks, normally it'd be about 5 minutes in terms of opening statements. I'd ask you to keep it around that, but we obviously have a little bit of flexibility given what has transpired. And let me just read out one more thing before I get in trouble, and this is pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motions adopted by the committee on Wednesday, October 5th, 2022, and Monday, April 17th, 2023. The committee is resuming its study of the environmental contribution of agriculture, with this meeting specific to the topic of bee mortality. And I know we have the great folks in front of us to be able to talk about that really important subject. So, Tom, I'm going to start with you from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, if you want to lead off, and then we'll just go down the line.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. Thank you for having invited me to discuss bee mortality today within the study of the contribution or the agricultural environmental contribution of agriculture. Thank you to the committee for paying attention to our industry. Pollination by bees is an important aspect of food security, whether it's through vegetables and so on. The government continues to work with us in order to attack the challenges and ahead. And among other things, there are federal governments that, and the sector continues to receive FPT support over the next 5 years. The department also supports leading-edge research in the bee sector, including our work on the detection and management of bee diseases and pests, including our work at the Beaver Lodge Research Farm in Alberta.
Today to be joined by a colleague, Dr. Stephen Purnall from Beaver Lodge in Alberta. And unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, he won't be able to participate here today, but I hope at some point the committee will have an opportunity to hear, to benefit from his expertise and hear from him directly. Among the projects he's involved in, he's among the AFC scientists partnering with several Canadian universities on genomics research to help increase detection of the effects of pesticides on honeybees so producers can take quick action to make any management changes they need. And from 2014 to 2017, we collaborated on a national surveillance project to establish a bee health database in Canada to help track pests, pathogens, and chemical residues in Canadian honeybee colonies. To help beekeepers build resilience and sustain and grow their hives, last year we launched a joint industry-government honeybee sustainability working group. This working group has been looking at short and long-term solutions to respond to overwinter losses and other challenges to produce and maintain high-quality honeybees and colonies. The working group developed an action plan to improve the long-term sustainability of Canadian beekeeping, honey, and pollination sectors. The plan, along with its recommendations, will be shared with federal, provincial, and territorial ministers at their annual conference in a couple of months' time. The working group covered topics such as federal, provincial technology transfer teams and programs, AI and other new techniques in the pipeline, the development of varroa control products and methods, maintaining and increasing domestic bee supplies, and addressing import bee supplies. This effort was a broad-based undertaking involving FPT governments, provincial beekeeping associations, as well as the Canadian Association of Professional Apiculturists and the Canadian Honey Council, from whom you'll be hearing very shortly. Right across Canada, our beekeepers continue to work diligently to grow their operations. For our part, we will continue to consult with all, including the Canadian Honey Council, the Fruit and Vegetable Growers of Canada, and other key provincial and industry stakeholders. To conclude, Mr. Chair, the federal government remains fully engaged and focused in supporting this important driver of our sector, our food security, and our economy. Thank you again, and I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosser. And we'll now turn to Mr. Berg. You have around 5 minutes, but we've got some leniency this afternoon. Over to you.
Thank you to the Chair and the committee members for the opportunity to discuss honeybee mortality in Canada. As an industry, the honeybee sector packs a punch far greater than people realize. The multi-billion-dollar canola industry relies on 60 to 80,000 colonies each year to pollinate seed canola in southern Alberta and is now expanding into Saskatchewan. Well over 100,000 colonies pollinate blueberries and cranberries in eastern Canada, and about 30,000 pollinate high bush blueberries in BC. Even with that, we know we are short colonies that are dedicated to pollination, and there's an ongoing discussion as to how short we really are. Nevertheless, combined with honey production and pollination of various other fruits and vegetables, makes our sector an integral component of the agriculture sector in general and an absolute key contributor to agricultural sustainability in Canada. As a commercial beekeeper, every spring I'm never sure what my stock losses will be until I get the chance to open the lid of the hive and inspect the colony. Some years are better than others. In 2022, a historical bad loss across most of Canada. 45% of the honeybee colonies in Canada died. That stock had devastating impacts to many beekeepers. While not exactly comparable, it's hard to imagine any other managed stock operations losing even half of that number. That 45% loss was 10% higher than the next highest recorded loss in 2008. It is still too early to tell this year, but many beekeepers are banking on having significantly better overwintering results. The most frequently cited causes of colony losses were ineffective varroa control, poor queens, and weak colonies in the fall. To address bee mortality in April of 2022, the federal government launched the Industry Government Honeybee Sustainability Working Group, comprised of federal and provincial representatives, industry partners, researchers, and beekeeper representatives. A smaller subgroup worked on putting together a report that was finalized earlier this year to prioritize recommendations that would go a long way in addressing honeybee mortality issues. The first priority was for support for provincial and regional tech transfer teams. Tech transfer teams help beekeepers identify health risks in their stock, do applied research, and are a key resource in treatment options. Currently, nearly every tech transfer team's future is in doubt, as funding is difficult to secure, as the industry alone cannot handle the financial burden. In support of this priority, Canadian Honey Council has put together a proposal for the federal government to single source fund each tech transfer team for $150,000 per year to allow the hiring of one person and cover expenses to conduct projects in national scope. For example, using the same testing parameters to gauge the efficacy of Apivar across Canada, our main varroa control product. This leads nicely into the second priority item, which is actions to accelerate the development of new varroa control products. Beekeepers know that it's only a matter of time before Apivar loses its efficacy, and currently there is no replacement available. We know that research is being done on some active ingredients that may prove effective, and that new and innovative treatments are in the works. But the reality of the situation is there's nothing for sure, and the future is in doubt. The support of increased domestic stock production and addressing the challenges of imported stock round out the top four priorities. The COVID crisis highlighted the precariousness of the sector as it relates to both stock and labor, as flights were cancelled, impacting both imported queen and package supplies and the manpower needed to effectively handle apiary activities. While imported stock remains a hot topic, the absolute need to increase domestic stock supplies should and does remain a key issue in maintaining a healthy supply of bees. I look forward to questioning and discussing discussions concerning bee mortality.
Thank you very much, Mr. Berg. Last but not least, Mr. Hamilton, over to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you very much for having me come here tonight. First of all, I want to acknowledge today that I hail from the Annapolis Valley of Nova Scotia, located in the traditional land and the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people who have stewarded this land for centuries. I'm here to speak in favor of allowing packaged honeybees to be imported into Canada from Northern California. I am a generational beekeeper from Saskatchewan. I was born and raised there. My parents were life members of the Saskatchewan Beekeepers Association. My grandfather helped to start the Saskatchewan Beekeepers Association. I was a director before I moved to Nova Scotia. Prior to moving to Nova Scotia in 1992, I had my own commercial bee operation in Saskatchewan. When the provincial meetings were held to discuss the closing of the border, I voted back then to close the border in 1986 to prevent the invasion of various foreign pests into our hives. I believe it is time to reevaluate the risk assessment since the results of the 2014 assessment on border closure are no longer accurate. In the spring of '92, we moved to Nova Scotia to work for the Bragg Food Group, who is the largest producer of wild blueberries in the world. The company has become one of the largest beekeepers in Canada, with commercial operations in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Ontario. All of this has been driven by the closure of the Canada-U.S. border and the lack of a reliable source of hives for pollination. I was allowed to speak before the Senate on this very same topic back in 2015, I believe. While we were unsuccessful then, I believe by my presence here today, I am proof of our beliefs and our resolve. We spoke to the Senate about the development of an additional 13,000 acres of wild blueberry land that our company had started to develop in northern New Brunswick, and the future needs of pollination of this land. The development is almost complete now, and the need for bees has increased. We expect to need 4 hives to the acre to pollinate that land. So where are all the honeybees going to come from? During the past 8 years, our company has been growing our hive numbers along with investing in infrastructure. This year, our company has purchased 3,000 packages of honeybees from Australia to pollinate our wild blueberries and those of our customers. This is on top of our existing operations of close to 20,000 hives. At this point, I would like to comment on the report by the Industry Government Honeybee Sustainability Working Group. I believe it deserves to be mentioned that as the largest beekeeper/blueberry grower in Canada, and 100% Canadian-owned, we can't understand why we weren't invited at least to make a presentation to this group. No communication whatsoever. Personally, I read their report and felt that they did not address the lack of pollinators for wild blueberry pollination or the high winter loss of hives. I would also like to comment on the report by Dr. Albert Robertson, who has extensive experience working in Northern California with honeybee queen producers. He feels we already have any issues they have now. I feel that the monsters of the past have been
Mr.
put
Hamilton,
to bed.
I'm just going to stop you just a little bit. Your papers are rubbing up against this a little bit. So if I know you're reading off your paper, if you could just make sure it's not touching your microphone. It's getting just a little bit of feedback for our translation team. So,
And my apologies.
No, you're fine. But I just I wanted to make sure I've stopped the clock. Back to you.
Okay.
All good.
That's fine. So I believe that the monsters of the past have been put to bed and that we should move forward with science-based decisions and not more scare tactics. There are people that believe that beekeepers should build a new industry to supply our own replacement stock. We've had over 30 years to accomplish this. The border closed in '87, and it hasn't come about. I believe it is time to quit subsidizing this endeavor. This is a non-tariff trade barrier. How is the commercial beekeeper suffering 80% winter loss ever going to rebuild? The financial costs are staggering. We have a contractor involved with us that has lost this spring 80% of his hives. He is buying 6,000 packages at about $300 a piece. He had to sell property to be able to buy the $1.8 million to replace those hives. That's his equity. That's his retirement fund. He doesn't have a pension. He owns a bee business. Why is the growth of the wild blueberry industry in Eastern Canada to be held back by an unsustainable dream? I formally request this committee properly fund a science-based review of importing honeybee packages from Northern California into Canada to fill the need for reasonably priced replacement colonies and to provide enough pollinator units to cover our growing pollination needs in Eastern Canada. Thank you very much, and I'm open for questions. And I apologize for the paper.
Oh, that's all good. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. We'll do just that. We'll turn over to questions. I'm going to start, I believe, with Mr. Barlow. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks to our witnesses for being a little bit flexible with the timing. Certainly, the technical issues are out of everyone's control, so it's great that you're able to do this. To Mr. Hamilton, to start with you, and I had the pleasure of touring Oxford's head office in Nova Scotia last summer. Great operation. Good to see how the commitment of that business to that region. But you mentioned about opening the border. You know, we wrote a letter to the Minister of Agriculture, actually exactly a year ago today, asking for many of these things that you are requesting to reassess the risks of importing hives from the United States from some of those regions. As a matter of fact, we've never had a response from the Minister of Agriculture on those requests to reopen the evaluation process. So I can understand how frustrated you must be if members of the Ag Committee also don't get a response from the Minister of Agriculture on a request of that nature, certainly how important this is to your industry. But if, just to go with our letter and maybe some of the comments that you made, what has changed, I guess, from that border closing that you said you voted in favor of that in the late 80s to now? Why do you feel that a risk assessment is warranted now and the same concerns that were there when the border was closed are no longer there? What has changed specifically that shouldn't be a concern?
We've had time. We've figured it out. I mean, you look down into the United States, there's lots of commercial bee groups that post regularly. They had a fabulous, although wet, almond pollination this year. All the bees seem to be coming back in really good hive strengths. And they've figured out pretty much all the problems. And, you know, back when we actually exterminated hives that had tracheomites, and then Varroa came along. But we've adapted. Now hive beetles come in. Hive beetle in southern Ontario is in our operation in Wellandport, and quite frankly, wax moth is a way worse pest than hive beetle. But these are all the monsters that have been brought out. Africanized honeybee, again, another monster that just keeps getting brought up, and you know it hasn't moved north. I was traveling last winter in Florida talking to a beekeeper, and they were in a panic because they sell queens, and they have to send their queens or prodigy away to have DNA testing to make sure they don't have Africanized in their stock. And they're not shipping to Canada. They're just shipping in Florida. But that's what they're doing in Florida. So right across the southern United States. They're figuring out how to deal with Africa and how to deal with Varroa, and we, back in 87, 86, we didn't know how we were going to do it. And there's new chemicals coming out. I think that's we've had the whole idea in my mind was we had time to defer things. I think it's time.
Yeah, thanks. So I guess it would be that there are two things, that you have very specific mitigation protocols to deal with those pests, mites, or Africanized bees would be the one thing. So there are some very specific mitigation strategies in place. And it sounds like also addressing maybe some of the misinformation that was out there about some of these monsters, as you called them. So both of those things have come into play over the last 30 years, 35 years now, to address that, so that we should be reassessing our risk management around importing these bees from the United States. To Mr. Berg, you had mentioned about how important the domestic supply would be to the future of this industry. What has been holding back the development of a domestic supply? And are there some things that need to happen to ensure that we can reverse that downward trend when it comes to replenishing our hives with domestic supply?
There isn't any one particular thing that's been holding the domestic supply back. It's the development of that supply system and getting some of the larger pollinators to accept the fact that there could be a domestic supply. It's being done, in particular in the province of Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan is probably the closest province to self-sufficiency when it comes to a large number of colonies. That being said, it's the domestic supply could be part of the answer. It's not. It will never be the whole answer, but it could be developed into a larger piece of the pie.
Is there, and I know you both had mentioned a North American bee strategy that would maybe be helpful for all of these problems, importing from the States and a domestic supply. Is that something that's being worked on, and are we an active participant in that?
I don't believe there is a North American strategy, mainly because the U.S.-Canada border has been closed since 1987. But going forward, that could be part of a new risk assessment and how that could possibly operate.
Mr. Hamilton, any on that?
I believe that in the last year there's been quite an expanded interest by the Americans. Up until just recently, they've really just stayed out of the whole affair. But I think it's economics. They see it as another income stream. And I'm not saying that the domestic bee supply thing is going to be done with if we start bringing in, because to be honest, in Northern California, I don't think there's enough bees to fill the void. I think that there's, a lot, but not what we need in total. And I honestly think that, once we get the Canadian border, then we're going to have provinces that are going to say, my borders are closed, the next one accepts them. It's not going to be a done deal to be able to buy packages into, say, New Brunswick. It's going to have to be decided provincially first.
We're going to leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Thank you, Mr. Barlow. We'll go to Ms. Valdez now for up to 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses who have joined this committee. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll just direct my questions to Mr. Rosser first. Can you provide an update on what the department is doing to help improve the health of honeybees in Canada, in addition to the working group that you already mentioned in your opening?
Mr. Chair, I thank the member for the question. As I think I alluded to in my opening remarks, we do have an established research program where we collaborate with universities in the development of new control products and the like. Beekeepers do, as do other agricultural producers, have access to our business risk management programs. Our agri-insurance program, for example, has provided support to producers that have suffered significant elevated levels of overwinter losses. With the new sustainable, we also, through a number of the provincial initiatives that the other witnesses had mentioned, are oftentimes cost shared, where it's a provincial program, provincially administered, but it's many of those programs are cost shared on a 60-40 basis between the federal government and provincial governments. As I believe I'd alluded to in my opening remarks, we hope shortly to present a series of recommendations to federal, provincial, and territorial ministers on other additional measures that they might consider to help improve the sustainability of bee populations in Canada. And I believe that work is timely in the sense that we're just a few weeks into the Sustainable Agricultural Partnership, Canadian Agricultural Partnership, and with many of the science and other programs that are funded through that framework, there is an opportunity, I think, to assess where this sector best fits within that suite.
Thank you. Are you able to provide an update on our current diagnostic capacity for testing and measuring bee health?
Mr. Chair, I regret very much that some of my colleagues who have deeper technical expertise than I weren't able to join, who I'm sure could provide a more comprehensive answer than I'm able to. But other than it is an area where I know that we are actively engaged in research.
Hopefully, we'll see if you can answer this one as well. But in 2016, the department initiated a project that would document the prevalence of newly introduced parasites. Do you have any updates on that project, if you're aware of any of those?
I'm afraid, Mr. Chair, I'm just not able to speak to that. But I'm sure if you're able, if the committee is able to hear from some of my colleagues at a subsequent hearing, that they could speak to it.
No worries. I'll move on. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move on to Mr. Berg. Mr. Berg, do you know which sectors have the highest mortality rates within bees? Is it honeybees, alfalfa, leaf-cutting bees, and bumblebees?
So alfalfa and leaf-cutting bees, alfalfa leaf-cutter bees and bumblebees would be a different sector altogether. We're typically only dealing with honeybees in the honey production and also in this type of pollination.
Thank you. And in your opening, you were saying how the honey production has depleted significantly. Can you give us any context? So, if in terms of how it's declined year over year?
So honey production has, in the last couple of years, declined slightly. Although it's not so much related to hive health as just hive numbers. The bigger problem here is the hive loss that we occurred in 2022, and that was spread across all forms of honeybee, I guess, occupations within that sector. Honey production and pollination both had very large losses, and I don't believe there was much differentiation between the bees that were used in honey production as towards the bees that were used in pollination.
Thank you. And in your opening, you had mentioned research. What support do you need in terms of, or what recommendations to this committee can you make to help with the research and innovation you were speaking about?
The one big thing that this committee could recommend would be the increase in funding for the tech transfer teams, and then also helping to expedite the development of new varroa control products. The varroa control products are really our Achilles heel in this situation.
Thank you. And are you familiar with the National Bee Farm Level Biosecurity Standard?
Sorry, the National
Bee Farm Level Biosecurity Standard.
I am not aware of that program.
I was going to ask because I'm just trying to readjust my questions because the witnesses have changed, but no worries. I will move on. Final question to Mr. Hamilton. We know that bee diseases and pests can spread between countries through the international trade in bees, especially package bees, but in your opening, you are trying to encourage and support bringing them into Canada. Can you describe what opportunities do you see would open up for us here in Canada?
Well, we'd be able to produce a lot more wild blueberries if we had packaged bees. And the packaged honeybee is, or a package of honeybees is basically as clean a product as you can bring. All you're bringing is bees, so you're not bringing any of the comb or honey or any of the other products that can carry the disease. So it actually limits it. And as I said in my presentation, we're already bringing packages in from Northern California, or Queens in from Northern California. And I think Mr. Robertson figured that because of all the queens we bought in up to date, we brought in about 6,000 packages already in just little crates at 3 or 4 at a time. And if we can get the queens from there, why can't we get packages from there?
Thank you, Ms. Valdez. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Before we go on, we're going to go to Monsieur Savard Tremblay. Visiting members, Mr. Vierson, Mr. Shields, on behalf of some Conservative members, Monsieur Lezon pour Monsieur Drouin. Donc, bienvenue à la Comité de l'Agriculture agroalimentaire. Et maintenant, Monsieur Savard Tremblay.
Welcome to the committee, and thank you to Mr. Savard Tremblay. Thank you again for having me. I'm starting to get used to this. Thank you to all the witnesses for your presentations. My question is for Mr. Berg. Mr. Hamilton told us about all of the losses in hives. How do you explain such gigantic losses?
The gigantic losses that have been occurring are typically being cited as lack of varroa control and poor queen quality, and also small cluster size or small colony size the fall prior. But they're probably rated in that exact order. Varroa control being the number one issue here.
Justement, la varroa, on nous en parle beaucoup.
With regards to varroa mite, a lot of beekeepers have been talking to us about it, and they're saying that this problem will only increase. This is, of course, a pest that is literally feeding off pollinators. The link to climate change comes up. Beekeepers talk about this. Do you confirm that there is a link?
I don't know that I could confirm that there's a link between varroa and climate change. Varroa has been an ongoing issue in Canada since the early 1990s. It was an imported pest that was brought into Canada in packaged bees. That was, I guess, before my time in beekeeping.
Ceci dit, oui, non, mais ça, je...
I understand that the origin, of course, is before the amplification of climate change. But with climate change, will the problem increase?
I don't know that we could make that particular link. The big link that needs to be made is the beekeeping industry as a whole needs more and or a new varroa control product.
Justement, en fait, en tant que...
As parliamentarian, what measure do you think we can what measures do you think we can take in order to help you control this varroa mite?
An increase in funding in research towards varroa mite control products would be probably the best solution in this case.
Donc, dans la recherche, vous dites?
So, research?
Yes.
Donc, recherche et contrôle?
So, research and control?
Research of new control products.
Parfait. Combien de temps, Monsieur le Président?
How much time, Mr. Chair? It's half time, so you have 3 minutes left. Oh, I'm only halfway through? Yes. You're only halfway. You've only used up half your time. Fantastic, then. So, Mr. Hamilton, would you like to add anything to that since you spoke about it previously? Do you see a link between climate change and the problems of this pest that might be increasing?
Yeah, I don't think I'm qualified to say whether it's related to climate change, but I would very strongly like to reinforce Jake's comments that we need new products. We're seeing the end of the apivar strips, and there is an oxalic treatment that I can't use because I work for a limited company, actually one of the top 50 companies in Canada, and I'm unable to use a product, and it's glycerin with oxalic acid, but it's under review, but I can't use it because it's not a legal treatment in Canada. And I've been in a bee yard with another beekeeper, and he said to me, "Jack, you're a fool for not doing it. It works really good." And I said, "I can't use it. It's illegal."
Ceci dit, même si vous...
That said, and of course we hear you clearly on the products, even though you say that you are not qualified to comment on climate change, would you confirm that the reproduction of the larvae is easier with the heat? Is that correct?
Yes, it would be, but if you get the treatments at the proper times, it defeats the climate change advantage for the mite. If I'm making any sense here.
Monsieur Burke, je reviens.
Mr. Burke, back to you. You've done work for the Canadian Honeybee Association, or Honey Association rather. Something that beekeepers have said is that new beekeepers don't have enough training to complete their tasks properly. Do you know that if there is a proper curriculum that is offered in education institutions?
There are a couple of different institutions that do offer beekeeping training, although there is no national-based beekeeping course that could be offered, which I guess could also be part of the solution. But the bigger thing here would be just more access and like my colleague Mr. Hamilton was referring to, some treatments that we know work but haven't been approved yet.
Thank you to you both. We'll now go to Mr. McGregor. Up to 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, witnesses, for being here today. So, Mr. Rosser, I think I'll start with you. Now, we limit packaged bees coming in to Canada from Australia, Chile, and New Zealand. And those three countries share a characteristic. They're separated from other countries. I mean, Australia and New Zealand are naturally islands. Chile has the Andes Mountains. Is that why? I guess I'm trying to understand the discrepancy as to why do we restrict packaged bees to those countries? Probably I've outlined the answer, but why then do we also allow queens to come in from California and Hawaii? What is the main difference there?
Mr. Chair, I thank the member for the question, and I will answer it, although I should preface it by saying if my CFA colleagues were able to join there, the regulator, and could give a more authoritative answer. But my understanding is for any potential source of foreign source of bees, the CFI will undertake a risk assessment of that country. The members are quite right that a large number of the packaged bees come from the southern hemisphere, in part reflecting the work done by the working group. Some other geographic priorities have recently been identified as potential sources. And I know that the CFIA has, in fact, my understanding is that they have authorized the import of packaged bees now from Italy and I know, are in active discussions with the Ukraine. I believe that the Ukraine has also been approved as a source of bees. So it's based on a risk assessment of the relative risks of bringing in bees from that country. In terms of packaged bees versus queens, just with my layperson's understanding is just a larger number of animals. It's harder to screen them visually or otherwise, and that's why they are perceived to be higher risk than the importation of queens.
Thank you. Mr. Hamilton, I guess, if we were to change the rules on packaged bees, I guess is the immediate beneficial impact being you've got more availability to choose from. And is it costs that you assume would go down because of the distance in transport, or is now Northern California just got a larger stock and is able to sell at a better price than what's available from Chile, New Zealand, and Australia?
So the bees coming from New Zealand and Australia are going into winter. The bees coming out of California are spring bees. Almond pollination starts Valentine's Day. So a month later, it's finished. And there isn't really anything from then until June there is minor pollination crops throughout the United States, but the big honey crops comes from alfalfa and clover later in the year. So there's ample surplus of bees at that time of year, just because they're big, strong colonies, and you can shake them, and it's really quite effective. And they're spring bees. They're not bees that are going into fall or winter in Australia and New Zealand. They're local bees. But I keep wanting to go back to, there's not enough for, that we're going to deplete the business for people in different provinces doing a local industry, because I'm sure the Americans are, right now a package of bees in California is worth $120 US. We're paying $300, well, $285 to deliver it to Halifax Airport. So.
And I just want to get to some other questions, because Varroa has been a big subject today. And I guess it's my understanding that, the bees, the packaged bees that we import, there's been no immunity developed naturally or through breeding techniques abroad to make any kind of resistance to Varroa possible, right? So you're basically importing them to replace ones that have been lost to the mite, right? It's just trying to replenish populations. We haven't yet figured that piece of the puzzle out yet.
They have bees that are naturally hygienic, but it's not a trait it's a recessive trait, and it's not something they can make that anybody who has bees they don't treat, they die.
Okay. Because I remember, I had someone from Vancouver Island who was involved in a not-for-profit called Ensure Hive Future, and he was working really on trying to develop through breeding a honeybee that fit with Vancouver Island's characteristics. And Varroa was a big issue, and really trying to develop traits that would make bees resistant to Varroa. I know, Mr. Rosser, you don't have the expertise, but can you tell us from a 30,000 feet level, is there research going on in this area? Has there been any promise in the breeding programs, or are we just, for the foreseeable future, going to have to rely on chemical and synthetic methods to take care of this pest?
Again, Mr. Chair, I regret that my colleagues couldn't join. Dr. Pernall was telling me today about collaborative research he's doing with somebody at the Simon Fraser University on new Varroa control products. So yes, I guess is the short answer.
And then
Mr. McGregor, I apologize. We're at time, but you're gonna.
I'm only at 5:18.
I've got you at 6.
Okay, sir. May I have started the clock a little bit late? I'll leave it there, Mr. Chair.
I'm pretty fair to you. Look, and I would have given you a few seconds, but you were just winding up, and then that would have been another minute and a half. So, but you'll get another crack at them. I'm going to go to Mr. Viersen for 5 minutes. Then we're going to go to the Liberals. We'll do 2.5, 2.5. I then will do a third round, but I certainly, Alistair, if you have any further questions, we won't play too strict here tonight. Mr. Vierson, 5 minutes.
Hamilton, can you just restate your opening request? Just about opening the border.
Oh, well, my initial request was I'm here to speak in favor of allowing packages of honeybees to be imported into Canada from Northern California.
You would recommend that?
I would recommend that.
Okay.
But I understand that we have to have the risk assessment.
I think we need to make it clear for this committee the fact, like, I'm from Northern Alberta. Falher, Alberta's in my riding, honey capital of Canada. Honeybees don't exist in Northern Alberta if people didn't bring them there. Is that a correct statement?
Very correct.
Yeah, and so that for everybody that I talk to there about this honeybee, the honeybees are dying and things like that. It's like, yeah, but they wouldn't exist if we didn't bring them here. And then we lock them up in a little box and we wrap it in a sleeping bag for the whole winter, and then we open it up in the spring and we hope that they're still survived in there. Is that a correct statement?
Or in my case, I wonder indoors, but it's still, you put them in the dark room for 6 or 5 months.
Yeah, our way they wrap them in a black, what looks like a sleeping bag.
Yep.
And hope for the best. Because what's interesting about Australia, New Zealand, Chile, is that they don't have -40. California doesn't have -40. Try to make these honeybees survive -40. That is what the game is all about, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that DNA testing has gotten dramatically better since 1987?
I would say so, yes.
Yeah. So that we can test quickly for Africanized bees. It's a lot cheaper now than it was in 1987.
Yeah, I think so. A lot quicker, too. They're doing a lot of it. Like I said, when I was really quite surprised when I talked to the Florida breeder that they could not sell queens until they had a lab result.
Okay, so that works out good. You talked about the seasonal changes. It's the fall bees that we're getting from southern hemisphere.
Yep.
That's a generational change to get them to be spring bees. Is that correct?
Yes, but
could you explain
the trick is when we hive a package to get the first eggs to hatch. So you've got an insect, so it's egg, larva, pupa, adult.
Yes.
So it's about, I think, 21 days for an adult worker bee. And so what you want to do is try and get your package to sustain itself until you get some young bees. And then it's just almost surprising, the difference, because you can see these little young bees running around the hive, and in the older, and we see it in our wintered hives as well when we pull them out of the buildings, set them down. When you get that first hatch, it's quite impressive. Oh, we've got young bees.
Okay. And that next generation, that's a spring bee then?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. How long is the average life of a bee?
In the summer, 6 to 8 weeks.
6 to 8.
In the winter, probably 6 or 5 months.
Okay. And so being able to import bees from the United States would allow you to just like fill those hives up quickly with current bees that know what they're doing already.
Yeah.
We don't have to wait.
At a reasonable price.
Yeah. But we also don't have to wait a generation.
No.
For them to get.
That's right.
Get to work.
Yeah.
Can you just talk a little bit about the difference between what is the value of pollination and what's the value of honey, and then there's the wax as well? Because lots of people think bees, they think honey, but there's a huge value to, I know canola, we're the honey capital of Canada because of canola, and there's a 1% to 2% production increase to have honeybees. But to just explain to people that honey is not the only thing that these bees are all about.
Actually, Jake asked me earlier today. We don't produce from our. We put into winter 12,000 hives this year. We hope to send 10,000 to pollination. We did that last year, and that's what we hope again this year. We produce enough honey to give out as our yard rent, but it's not really our focus. Okay. Our focus is making more wild blueberries.
Okay. And if you don't harvest the honey, what happens to it?
It stays in the hive for feed.
The bees eat it again.
Yeah. But our growth program we're feeding a lot of sugar anyways because we're constantly growing our hives. We're always trying to grow more hives. All 3 bee operations, other than sending strong bees to pollination, the second thing that they want us to do is grow our numbers.
Okay. Can you just reinforce one last, I just got a minute left here. Can you just reinforce this, the idea that bees, if we didn't bring them here, they wouldn't be here?
They're not native to North America.
North America?
Yeah. Back in the day, the natives called them the white man's flies. And they brought them over with the early settlements because they couldn't figure out why their fruit trees and whatnot weren't getting pollinated.
Gentlemen, we'll have to leave it at that. Mr. Viersen, we were at time, but I wanted to make sure that was on the record. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. We'll go to Mr. Turnbull for 5 minutes now.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks to our witnesses for being here today. And so not an expert on this topic, but so bear with me. I have a few questions. But so from our briefing package, I see, okay, the honeybee colonies have actually risen. The number of beekeepers has risen over time, but I think the issue is the mortality rate. Would you say that's true? That's really the big issue that we're discussing, is that mortality rate, which is climbing quite high. The graphs that we can see, it's like up towards 46% in 2021. So that's obviously a problem. The factors that are identified, there's numerous ones in our briefing package, and I just wondered in terms of how you sort of diagnose when there's many different factors potentially involved in a complex environment that the bees are in. How do we diagnose what is causing them to die? Is it just one thing? Because we've heard only a couple of the factors in our briefing package. There's some others like pesticide use, which are also included, and the changes to weather patterns. So are those also factors here? Mr. Rosser, maybe I'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just say that my understanding, there's no question that 2022 is, and I think Mr. Berg may have spoken to this in his opening testimony, was an exceptional year. There was, like, as far back as we have data, there was never a year like it in terms of overwinter mortality. And it wasn't regionally focused, it was national. And I think there were probably multiple factors at play in different regions that account for 2022 being an exceptionally poor year.
So, Mr. Berg, I know you were specifically focused on honeybees. Like I read just recently about the fact that monocropping, just for example, and the killing of native plants and weed control can have an impact on the nutrition of those honeybees because there's less for them to forage on. So can you speak to that a little bit? Is that a factor you're concerned about as well?
Yes, monoculture is a factor we're concerned about. Although in my operation, we thrive on the monoculture that happens in the prairies of the canola crop. That's what I make my living on. I make honey from canola. 95% of my honey crop is canola. But we also need those other types of flowering crops, or not crops, but other type of flowers, wildflowers in the ditches and other types of wild land. To help grow and sustain those bees for the other 11 months of the year. Canola crops are great, but they only flower for a month. So from the 1st of July to the end of July, there's a huge sea of yellow flowers across the prairies. But we need those other wild areas and other wildflowers starting in early April, right through till the canola crop comes on. And then we also need those flowers after the canola crop is done to sustain those bees and keep them growing.
Okay, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. In terms of the neonicotinoid pesticides, I know this has come up a lot, at least in the briefing package that I've read through, and I've talked to the National Farmers Union and several other farm organizations that are concerned about not having pollinators and the widespread use of those pesticides. Mr. Hamilton, what's your sort of view on what we should be doing about that? Is the government doing enough on that front?
I keep bees on potato land, and I kept bees on PEI for a few years through the summer. I'm I'm hesitant to comment. I don't see a, I think it, I don't want to comment.
It's a sensitive subject, I think. But Mr. Rosser, what about your perspective on this? I know the government has done work through the Pest Management Regulatory Agency. Are we doing enough to limit the widespread use of neonicotinoid pesticides?
Mr. Chair, I again I regret that my PMRA colleagues weren't able to join. I know they were ready to speak to that issue. I don't feel that I can do justice in trying to address it.
Mr. Turnbull, you get about 45 seconds.
No problem. I guess the last question is really about climate change. I know that this issue comes up a lot with, and one of the factors that have been identified, at least in our briefing packages, the longer winters and the changes to the seasons. And is this having an impact on the bees and the mortality rate of bees? And can you clarify how you've seen any changes to the weather patterns and whether there's best practices that can prevent against colony losses? Mr. Berg, I'll start with you.
It is a tough subject to really put a gauge on because the weather patterns do change over time and there's ebb and flow there. Part of what we're doing with bees, keeping them alive in Canada, we're pushing them to the absolute limit, trying to keep them alive over the winter. So if the weather patterns change just a little bit, it makes it harder. So we have to make sure all the other boxes have been checked off. The varroa mite count is low, the other bee diseases are under control, and the bees are healthy going into winter. If any of those boxes haven't been checked, along with an extra couple days of cold or a little bit extreme cold or longer spring than normal or longer winter than normal, that hive doesn't make it. So that's part of the problem is we need to make sure the bees are extremely healthy going into winter.
We're going to keep it at that, gentlemen. Thank you. Maintenant, Monsieur Savard-Tremblay pour 2 minutes.
Mr. Savard-Tremblay for 2.5 minutes. My question is for Mr. Rosser. Can you confirm the following information that was provided to us by many different beekeepers? Queen bees in Quebec and Canada are imported. Can you confirm?
Monsieur le Président, oui,
Yes, I can confirm that indeed we do import queen bees. Why can't we produce our own queen bees here? I believe Mr. Berg spoke about that there are indeed some importations, but another option exists to improve the health of our industry, which is to try to increase the domestic production. With regards to imports, is there an issue with regards to genetics? Could that be bad for the genetics of the bees here? Maybe the imported bees are not necessarily acclimated to our climate. I think that it is a shame that my colleague from the Food Inspection Agency can't participate today, but I know that every country before actually proceeding with the importations, they mitigate the risks. And what would be the challenges for local production of queen bees? What can we improve on? I think Mr. Berg or Mr. Hamilton could answer better than I can, but we do have some recommendations for the committee. Provinces and committees have participated before. Mr. Berg mentioned more tech transfers and so on. This is something that we want to discuss with various levels of government in July. Anything to add, gentlemen, on domestic production? 20 seconds, I guess? 30 seconds left.
On domestic production.
So yes, there is domestic production of queen bees in Canada, but there is also a large number of imported queen bees as well. One of the big problems with domestic production of queen bees is timing. Most colonies or most beekeepers want queen bees earlier than we can produce them in the same year. So some more research into overwintering queens in queen banks or other new innovative ways of overwintering queens that could be produced the summer prior.
Merci.
We'll leave it at that. Mr. McGregor, 2.5 minutes, and then I plan to go Conservative, Liberal. Any final burning questions? I might have a few as the chair, given this has been a very interesting topic. Mr. McGregor.
Thank you, Chair, and I started my clock this time, so we're good. Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Berg, I'm going to ask 2 questions for both of you to take turns answering. First of all is, like, you both come from very different regions of Canada, Nova Scotia and in the prairies. How often do you observe the health of wild pollinators? Like, do you ever take lessons from how they're doing and take any lessons on how that may affect your domestic production? Have you noticed any jumping of varroa mites to wild populations? Do any show that they are resistant to it? And secondly, when it comes to increasing the amount of forage that's available, wild forage, aside from the domestic crops that you are primarily responsible for, what methods work well? What kind of partnerships have you established to try and increase that? So, Mr. Hamilton, if you want to start.
To start with, right off the top of my head, we're planting mustard crop on. It's in our rotation. We have a large carrot farm in the Annapolis Valley, and we plant mustard because, first of all, it's a great nectar source for our bees, and the roots are actually good at suppressing the nematodes that are in the soil. So it's and then finally it's mowed down as a mulch after it's bloomed. So we are very progressive in that. Now that's not during pollination. That's in the summertime when we're growing our hives. So we're doing that within our own company, and being very successful and very happy with it, actually.
And I just want to give Mr. Berg a chance to answer as well.
So typically out in the prairies, we haven't been seeding other crops to offset the flowering season. Although we would like to encourage government agencies, rather than spraying the roadside ditches out or using a seed mix that has some type of flowering plants in it, rather than just grass.
Okay, great. I'll just leave it there.
Okay. So we'll go to Mr. Shields, and then we're going to be going back to Mr. Lewis or Mr. Joanne, and then we'll go from there.
Monsieur le Président,
Wait.
est-ce que j'aurai...
Mr. Chair, will I have a little bit of time left at the end for my motion? Yes, you will. Mr. Chair, I would also like to have some time. I don't want to interrupt the current questions, but I would like to add an extension for the witnesses who were unable to participate today. I'd like to add a meeting.
Those witnesses back, and we'll have to talk about a committee when we'll schedule them. But I absolutely want to hear from PMRA and CFIA. It was disappointing that the technology didn't allow for it, but we'll make sure. You're not going to have any issue with that committee. Mr. Liu, once we're done, if you want to raise something, we'll have a bit of time to address that. Mr. Shields, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and appreciate the witnesses today. Just so we're clear, all bees are imported in North America. That's clear. They're all imported, not native. Great. Other pollinators are out there. I'm from an area that has 70% of Canada's irrigation in my riding. We have 4% of the arable land producing 30% of Alberta's ag GDP. Pollinators are critical. Bees are critical. Honey's a side business, as you've said with the other. So pollination is critical. But I want to go to something else. It's called the digital log. And that's in the trucking industry that's come into effect. And the reason I mention that is because it's different than the U.S. one. The U.S. has about a 3-hour window before their clock starts. For moving bees, when you hit that 12-hour mark and you're sitting, let's say, somewhere in BC, moving bees in hives, or somewhere in southern Ontario, and you hit that 12-hour mark, what would happen to a load of bees sitting on a truck at, say, 30 degrees centigrade? What's going to happen?
Not going to be good.
Jake?
It really wouldn't be good. It would be a disaster.
Yeah.
Those bees would suffer.
The load would perish.
Right.
The whole load, 400, 432, 530, whatever's on the load, they'd cook, because they're netted in, right?
Right.
The whole load would be netted, so.
So the Americans have figured out a 3-hour window before the clock starts ticking. So that's a 15-hour, basically, gives them the movement versus the 12. And I think in a country that's spread out like ours is, that really puts our bees at risk in moving, because when you hit that 12-hour clock, you turn the motor off, right? You don't have a half-hour extension to get somewhere else. You don't have the option to unload. This is really a tough one. So the exemption for ag is something we're looking for, because the U.S. has that exemption for ag. Is that something you would recommend?
Very much so.
Very much so, yes.
Mr. Rosser, is this a topic that you're familiar with at all?
Mr. Chair, I'd just say in the working group process that we've discussed here today, this was not a major topic of discussion. It was not a subject in which that group made recommendations.
So in the sense of, and I'm going to go one step further past the bees, in the production of blueberries and other products that are sensitive to movement time, does this also affect you in the sense of the product coming out of the Annapolis Valley, for example?
Yeah, during blueberry harvest, they're moving berries, and sometimes they're passing each other. They're moving berries in every direction, yeah.
So an ag exemption would be helpful broadly in the agricultural
Point of order,
industry.
Mr. Chair.
Shields, I'm just going to stop the clock.
Gotcha.
I will
Thank you.
salute the sense of creativity from my friend Mr. Shields to bring up this issue. But as he knows, they're not Transport Canada officials in front of us. So perhaps, I understand where Mr. Shields is going, but perhaps he would be better to ask those questions to Transport Canada officials. That's all.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Durant. I've never gone off topic before. So, in the sense of has been mentioned when we talk about separate bees, the cutterleaf bee is one of the most specific, critical ones out there. Are you familiar with I think you are, Jake, Mr. Berg, you're familiar with the cutterleaf bees.
The leafcutter bees.
Leafcutter bees.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with them, but it's not part of our sector.
Right. Mr. Hamilton, you're familiar with them?
They've been north of where I grew up towards Carrot River, Saskatchewan. There's big leafcutter areas. They pollinate alfalfa tremendously, and they've tried numerous times to use them to pollinate wild blueberries. They don't work. The wind, they're affected by wind very easily. The idea of the nests are that you have a nest so that they will fly within 500 feet of that nest. So what happens in the East Coast, we get some very strong winds. I thought we got strong winds in Western Canada. No. We get them in Atlantic Canada. And they'll just blow the insects right off to the edge of the field.
So the leafcutter bees, in the sense, are very specific.
Yep.
And very critical to the alfalfa seed. Now, the alfalfa crops go 2 or 3 times a year, not specific to when canola is, so they're pollinated 3 times, can be, in 3 crops in a year. So the leafcutter bee is a critical piece to the agriculture industry, in the alfalfa industry.
Again, we're dealing only with honeybees in this case.
Right.
I'm not very familiar with leafcutter bees.
But it's a little piece, because we export alfalfa seed to the U.S. as a market, let alone growing it in our area. So it's a very critical piece in this conversation when we're talking about bees.
We'll leave it at that, Mr. Shields. Certainly on the record, we know that the cutter bees are important too. So I'm going to go back to my Liberal colleagues. Mr. Lewis, if you want to share with Joanne, that's up to you, but you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank all of the witnesses for being here, especially under these different circumstances when we had 2 different panels. And as we learned right away that how important the sector is to drive our agriculture sector, so I really appreciate you being here. Maybe I'll start with Mr. Rosser. Some of the main causes that we've talked about for colony collapse. We've talked about illness, we talked about pesticides, we mentioned monoculture, and we mentioned changes in weather patterns. A lot of these are interconnected, And monoculture seems to be at the center of a lot of it. Monoculture will create the need for increased use of pesticides, which is detrimental to bee health. And it provides bees with one nutrient source, which we learned has its place for certain times of the year. But how can we increase crop diversity in order to decrease bee colony deaths? Are there best practices out there that farmers are using to increase in diversity?
Mr. Chair, I'd only say if the intention of the committee is to call the witnesses who are unable to participate, my colleague Dr. Pernall is an expert in the field, probably much better able to respond to that question in depth than I could possibly do.
Not a problem, unless, like I said, we're trying to. Maybe I would ask Mr. Berg. Do you know of farmers using best practices? Because at the end of the day, farmers are looking to make money. If they can plant those extra rows, they're going to do that. But is there a way to incentivize? Is there a way to help farmers to plant that biodiversity?
Yes, there probably are ways to do that, although I'm unaware of any governmental incentives that are available at this time that would cause that to happen.
We also mentioned some changes in weather patterns and got some mixed answers, but maybe Mr. Hamilton would be the perfect person to ask. Droughts and flooding, what would that do to the crops? What does that do to the pollinators itself? How the
Droughts, it reduces the swelling of the berry, so it makes it a smaller blueberry crop. When you're in a drought, there's no nectar for your bees, so it would mean that we would have to feed them more. But we are proactive in that. We don't necessarily. We're proactive with our bees and with our growth, trying to push them and expand them. And so far, we've been reasonably successful.
And the flip side of that would be flooding and excess.
I've had highs go down the creek. Yeah.
We talked about pesticides briefly. Maybe Mr. Osner, I know that the Honeybee Sustainability Group, they haven't released their report, but they're going to be producing an action plan for long-term, short-term. Do you know if they are talking about the effects of pesticides?
Mr. Chair, I don't recall. I mean, there was certainly talk about Varroa control products, and again, no, I do not think that the working group made specific recommendations beyond the usage of pesticides beyond those used to control Varroa.
And then maybe lastly, we just kind of touched on illness. You say research is being done for Varroa mites. Are there certain? Is it through private sector? Is it through universities? Is it through partnerships? How is that working?
Mr. Chair, my understanding is there is public financing available through the Agricultural Partnership, among other funding sources. And my understanding of the research is it is quite collaborative, and oftentimes industry will also participate in funding. I know there are partnerships we have within the department researchers that are expert in this field, and they will typically work in collaboration with university-based researchors and others.
And then in my last minute, 2022, we talked about up to 45% losses. What unfortunate lessons can we learn from that year? Was that just a perfect storm of problems? And I would leave that open to anyone.
I think, yes, it probably was a perfect storm of problems. We are starting to see the end of Apivar as a useful product. The summer of 2021 was a early spring and late fall. It gave a couple of extra growth cycles for the Varroa mites to grow, and possibly Mr. Hamilton might have some other thoughts.
My experience has been we had our own correction a few years back, and you just can't let your guard down. You have to make sure that you've got your mite treatments and that the mite treatments are working. You have to make sure you have to have the feed in the hives early. You have to be prepared for a wet fall where they don't want to take the feed. Like you got it. It's 100% on, and you know, you would say last year was a benchmark year. Like I say, there's a grower in Niagara-on-the-Lake that's buying 6,000 packages right now.
We're going to have to leave it at that,
Thank you for your
Mr.
time and
Lewis.
your perseverance. Thank you.
Look, to my Bloc and NDP colleagues, I said I would give you one. I know, Alistair, you want a short one. I have a few questions. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to indulge because it's an interesting conversation. Monsieur Savard Tremblay, no questions? You're good? Okay. Keep it tight, please, Mr. McGregor.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Hamilton, I'll just direct the one question to you because you are primarily using bees for fruit production, for berries. I'm just wondering, my question to you is, like, I understand that, honeybees are imported, but, like, how often do producers like yourself pay attention to the wild and native pollinators? Like, are there any consistent efforts to look at how they are doing because I know they do help pollinate some of your bushes, but do you ever have are there ever any serious interactions with the wild population to see how they're doing and so on?
To be honest, we're all about anything that wants to pollinate wild blueberries.
Yep.
I was in a blueberry field with the tech team from Nova Scotia, and it was a rainy day. It was pouring rain. Now, I had them there. I wanted to show them what strong highs looked like during pollination, but it was a terrible day. As it was, there was bumblebees flying around. The problem with the bumblebees, Kenna McKenzie, she was a researcher at the station in Kentville. She said, yes, bumblebees are good, but one nest only has 30 or 40 adults. They're far better pollinator than honeybees. But there's only 30 adults. He said, your hive there has 20, 30, 35,000 bees there in it. It's the sheer numbers. And remembering that we only have a short bloom period. It's just like that and it's gone.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm just going to take a couple questions. One of the things that I heard during the conversation was what is actually causing the mortality, because this has become, I think, part of the consciousness a lot more of not only parliamentarians but the public because of the mortality we're seeing. Am I correct in saying that we're seeing higher mortality numbers over the last couple of years in particular? And just briefly, is it just as a result of the varroa mite, or we really don't know because we actually have to do more research to try to figure out what the root cause of some of this mortality is? Maybe Mr. Rosser, if you have anything on that, and then just quickly Mr. Berg or Mr. Hamilton.
Sure, Mr. Chair, I have a lot to add to what's been said, other than I think, as been described in the conversation today, they're sensitive creatures, and it stands to reason that, that it doesn't take a big change in environmental conditions to have a significant impact on populations. And, some years are better than other, and I think there's many factors at play. But clearly, as you move to an environment where there are more extremes, that won't be good for bee health.
But to Mr. Berg and Mr. Hamilton on that, and you can address the first question about the cause of the mortality. But what I'm hearing from both of you is that now is a pretty important time to make sure that something is being done to restore bee health and numbers across the country. Is that fair? And any quick element on mortality?
Yes, we do need to restore the numbers across the country for various reasons. I mean, pollination of fruit crops across the country is a huge issue. So I think without being a researcher, I believe part of what's happening right now is probably varroa control. But I'm not a researcher and don't want to really comment on that.
Anything further, Mr. Hamilton, on the?
As far as trying to get more bees to blueberries, I'd love to be able to truck 50 semi-loads of bees from Alberta and Saskatchewan and Manitoba to Nova Scotia and then get them back in time for honey crop season. But that has to be, we have to figure that out.
So, but I want to take you back to 1987, and Mr. Barlow was leading you on this line of questioning. Part of the impetus, I wasn't around then, part of the impetus around this decision was that varroa mite was not widespread in Canada, but it might have been in the United States. That was part of the protection, right, in terms of trying to make sure that the diseases or different elements that existed outside the boundaries didn't find their way in. Am I correct in saying that, Mr. Hamilton?
It was the slow spread.
Okay.
And surprisingly, in Nova Scotia, it was never actually determined, but it was believed that a hobbyist brought 2 hives into the metro and got them from New Brunswick, brought them in, plunked them down, and the first positive varroa mites were found in metro, and they just spread from there.
So I want to go to you and Mr. Berg on this. What is the profile in Canadian bees in relation to varroa mites? Is it vastly different than what the rates of infection would be in the United States right now? Or is there a lot of large similarity between the 2 bee populations as it relates to either varroa mites or some of the other elements that we are trying to avoid, as you guys mentioned earlier? Maybe Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Berg.
As far as I'm concerned, no, we're very similar.
So I think the levels of infestations are very similar. I think one of the concerns that was stated in the 2014 risk assessment was the apivar resistant forms of varroa that were in the U.S. but not in Canada at that time. So I think Mr. Hamilton is right. It is probably time for a new risk assessment.
And Mr. Berg, I've heard you say loud and clear about the importance of domestic production, and frankly, Mr. Hamilton, you've said that it can be both at the same time. Is the Canadian Honey Council's position, Mr. Berg, that obviously we have to focus on domestic production and the building up of the bee capacity, but that importation, as long as there's reasonable protocol in place, could be allowed at the same time? Like, I haven't heard what the position of your council is. I know domestic production is important. Can both be achieved at the same time?
Yes, absolutely. Both are needed. Domestic production should be ramped up, and it has its place. Although in years like in 2022, where there was widespread bee losses across the country, in other years, in most years or more commonly, we'll have one area of the country that has a higher loss than normal. And in those years, possibly domestic production could be more of a filler to fill that gap, where if the West has a good winter, but the East doesn't, we could then supply some bees to the East.
Queen bees are allowed in, but it's just regular package bees that we're talking about in terms of the importation from the United States. We mentioned Chile, New Zealand, Australia. I think, Mr. Rosser, you mentioned Italy. What is the profile of disease in those countries? I don't know, and I ask this question honestly. Is there varroa mites in these countries of importation? Is it at a lower rate, and that's what has allowed for the acceptable risk? Mr. Rosser, if you know it, or to our industry folks, would welcome to hear it.
I just very quickly say that, I think the risk profile will look at a variety of different diseases. In the case of the U.S. profile that was just referenced, I think there were 4 individual diseases identified as in that risk assessment, but they would certainly, varroa and other risks would be considered in due course before the import of bees was allowed from a new destination.
That's, sorry, Mr. Hamilton, anything you want to add, Mr. Berg? And then I'm probably testing the limits of my good colleagues here. Over to you, Mr. Hamilton.
Am I wrong in stating that we're accepting packages from Ukraine?
No, you're not. We are now accepting packages from the Ukraine.
Okay. Thank you, colleagues. That helps to satisfy some of the concern that I had. Mr. Liu, I know you want to move some committee business. Let me first thank our witnesses. Thank you, Mr. Rosser, for coming in and fielding and being very generous with your time. Mr. Berg, thank you for making the trip all the way in from Saskatchewan and for your work on the Honeybee Council. And Mr. Hamilton, great to see a fellow Nova Scotian, and certainly Oxford Frozen Foods is something we're proud of back home. So thank you for being here and sharing some of your insights on behalf of my colleagues. Mr. Liu, I know you wanted to move something you've given notice, so why don't we move that and deal with that now?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I know that it's Monday night. Everybody is eager for this meeting to end. I had proposed a motion. I imagine that everybody received it. I'm sure that the clerk gave it out to all of my colleagues and distributed it. I won't do the whole, it depends on you if I read it or not. What I'd like is for us to take a very quick decision and position with regards to the closure of Olymel processing plant in Vallée-Jonction, Quebec, which has a very important impact on pork producers and farmers in Ontario. This is 1 2-hour study 1 hour with witnesses and the second hour with Quebec and Ontario pork farmers, as well as the Canada Pork Council. It would be great if we can make a decision on this motion as soon as possible so that these people could, of course, produce a report. I do think it's a very important study, and this issue is quite important, and we must make a decision. I don't know if any colleagues have any questions, but I would like for us to make a decision tonight.
I recognize it's an important subject. I know we have determined a committee schedule, but of course I'm always at the hand of the majority and the will of the committee, so we can deviate. But I do want to recognize we have some work ahead of us in the days ahead. Mr. Drouin, you wanted to speak to this.
Oui, merci beaucoup.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would like to thank Mr. Lehoux. I know that it is difficult when we suffer losses in our communities. I'd just like to say that the committee and subcommittee has met previously. I don't know how one meeting will be enough to make enough recommendations. I think 2 hours is short. We know that the company will be closing in December. The decision is very hard for the community. But if it's just one meeting, of course, I will let Mr. Lehoux make the decision, but we can meet as quickly as possible. I don't know that we can make a report at the House with a single meeting. It's not enough time to determine all of the issues. If there's going to be more meetings, then I will say that we do have a schedule to follow, and if the motion is adopted, then we will have to fit it into our schedule because we have already decided what is to do. The processing plant is not closing tomorrow. It's in December. They have already announced it. The Quebec government is already involved, and they haven't been asked to actually intervene. I know Mr. Lehoux wants to say something, so I'll let him do that.
Go to Mr. McGregor. I see his hand, and then I'll go to Mr. Barlow and back to Mr. Lehoux if necessary.
Yeah, I understand how important this is to the local community, and I don't know if we can issue a report, but I'm just wondering if Mr. Lehoux will consider maybe that this committee authorize the chair to write a letter to the minister based on what we heard, and we express our concern because if we're going to do a report, and I assume include recommendations, we may need to expand it. And as Mr. Lehoux knows, our calendar's pretty full these days. So that's just maybe one suggestion for his consideration.
Let's go to Mr. Barlow.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the committee taking the time to discuss this for Mr. Lehoux, as I'm sure I would be in a similar position if Cargill decided to close the meat processing plant in High River. It'd be pretty devastating not only to my constituency, my riding, but obviously to the industry. Why I feel this is important and how we decide to work this into our calendars is I certainly understand the committee has important issues to discuss, but I think we also have to be nimble when issues do arise that are unexpected, and certainly this is unexpected. And I know it sounds like the facility is not going to close until the fall or winter. However, in speaking to, we had the Ontario pork producers in my office today as a matter of fact, they're very concerned with now the lack of capacity, processing capacity in Canada, and how they're going to resolve this. So I know doesn't close until the fall, but that only gives them a few months to try and find different locations or different processors for, tens of thousands of animals. And that is a problem. So right now they're going to be trying to get into Iowa and Idaho, but if something were to happen at the border or United States production goes up, they lose that capacity, that capacity room south of the border. They've got to go somewhere else. They're also worried about how far, with the new electronic logs, how far they can actually truck the hogs, because they do not want to have to deal with unloading and loading. So I know it sounds like it's a long way off, but there are some big issues that need to be addressed. I do understand Mr. Drouin's point. This is a private company, but I do believe it is our job as this committee to hear our stakeholders, hear their concerns and some of the issues that they are facing. And if Mr. McGregor has a good suggestion as well, if Mr. Lehoux is willing to do that, that might make us a little bit more time sensitive. So I guess we have an option here to do that, do 1 hour or one day. I think we can fit that into our schedule and address what I think is an important issue for the people who we are here to represent, and that is our agriculture and agri-food stakeholders. This could be a very significant issue that has ripple effects across Quebec and Ontario, and perhaps into Manitoba if processing capacity becomes more of an issue.
So I'm going to go to Mr. Drouin, and then afterwards I'm going to go to Mr. Savard-Tremblay. Oh. Okay. Sorry, Monsieur Savard-Tremblay.
Well, if it is difficult for me to intervene in the schedule of a committee of which I'm not a permanent MP, but I am in agreement with Mr. Lehoux's proposition. I congratulate him for moving this motion. There are a lot of such processing plants in my riding, so I support the idea, but I also support Mr. McGregor's idea. I don't think that one's meeting is going to really overwhelm and change the scheduling.
I'll make on processing capacity. I'll remind this committee, and we're not against the motion. We'll support if we write a letter. I salute what Mr. McGregor is saying, but we've already done a study on processing capacity in Canada, so we may really come up with the same recommendations at some point, and this taking a holistic view of the processing capacity in Canada, it's very concentrated, and this committee has heard witnesses time after time that we've over the past few years on the studies that we've done prior to the last election. And for those of you who were on the committee, I think Mr. McGregor, Mr. Barlow, I think you were there. Yeah. Sometimes you're there, sometimes you're not, but you're a recurring member. But if we write a letter after this and to get it as soon as possible, ça me fait plaisir d'appuyer.
It will be my pleasure to support Mr. Lehoux's motion.
See Mr. McGregor now motioning. I know, Mr. Liu, we want to come back to you. I'm going to go to Mr. McGregor. You'll have the final thoughts, and then I'm going to tell us, hopefully, with your blessing, where we're going as your chair. So over to you, Mr. McGregor.
Yeah, that was going to be my point, that the letter can include and reinforce the findings of our earlier report on processing capacity.
So look, Mr. Liu, I will turn it to you, but it looks as though you've got approval for your motion to move forward. I would request that you keep it as is and trust the chair and his discretion to be able to try to move this as quickly as possible, given our existing previous meetings. But I'll turn it back to you to see if you want to thank your colleagues for moving this forward, because it's an important subject.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, of course, the modification to writing a letter is very much welcome. And as a complement to what Mr. Drouin mentioned, indeed, we have done a study in the past. Right now, I do think that this situation has changed quite quickly because there have been closures on the international market. This is what my colleague, Mr. Barlow, mentioned. About 1 million animals in Quebec and 700,000 in Ontario that's a lot. And so I think that it's important to talk about this, and perhaps there are some new elements, and the people that we have invited as witnesses can elucidate us in order to write a letter to the minister. Of course, I'm just suggesting it because I forgot to mention it the other day. The animal's health is quite important. You said that Mr. Drouin, that the closure is for December, but there is some panic because there are 1,000 employees in that processing plant. There are maybe people who will leave the area, and of course that will, impact the capacity in the short term until then. So it's important for us to look at this motion in order to find solutions or at least make some recommendations. So if it is adopted with the modification of writing a letter, of course I agree, and I think that we can hand it over, or I can hand it over to the minister myself. Can we conclude? I'm very open, Mr. Chair, to collaborate with you.
Don't worry, as the chair, I'll make sure that that letter gets to the minister. But look, I think we can all agree that that the issue is serious, the issue is important, and has wide-ranging impacts in many regions. Certainly, as you mentioned, Ontario and Quebec. So here's what we're going to do. We don't need to have a vote. This has been passed. I will use my discretion and work with the clerk within a reasonable timeline to get this in. I know there's a sense of urgency. We'll invite the folks that you've listed, assuming that they all come. That should fill the panels. But if we need additional help, we'll turn over to the parties and ask for additional help. What I will also say is we'll try to set aside maybe 10 or 15 minutes. We'll shoot for a 2-hour and 15-minute meeting so that once we are done, we can either turn in camera or we can, so that we can provide some feedback. This will not be a formal report, but there will perhaps be some element of a discussion that we might want to inform the analyst to write the letter. So we'll try to make that a reality. Okay. All right, colleagues, what I thought was going to be a short night turned only to be 9 minutes short, but we had great testimony from those on the B. Very interesting topic tonight. Sorry for the technical issues, but our translators have to come first, and we'll try to get that resolved. And we will work, I assume, we want to make sure we get CFIA and PMRA back. So you can leave that with me and our capable clerk and analyst, and we'll make sure that that happens in the days ahead. We will see you all on Wednesday for a continuation of B Mortality, and we'll go from there. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.